Okay, so yeah, okay, we got the green light for starting our program today. Um, so yeah, welcome everyone. It's with great pleasure that we are participating in this series of virtual engagements between French and Indian artists, curators, heads of museums and galleries. It's an initiative between Chennai Photo Biennale and the French Institute in India. And we are super glad that you're with us today for this conversation between me. I'm Arko Datto, and I'm an artist and curator. I work. I'm in between both of these things, and I'm one of the co-curators of the Chennai Photo Biennale, which is going to happen soon. And today I'll be in a conversation with Damarice Amao, who is an assistant curator and of photography at the Centre Pompidou, which is the Musée National d'Art Moderne, the National Museum of Modern Art in Paris. And she's an art historian as well. And so bienvenue and welcome to Damarice for this conversation. She specialized in the 20th century European avant-garde photography, and she has curated a number of amazing exhibitions on these, along with the accompanying catalogs, and notably on Jacques André Boiffard in 2014, Elie Lothar in 2017, Dohamar in 2019, and Arme de Classe, Photographie Arme de Classe, photography as a class weapon in 2018. So I'll let Damarice introduce herself a bit more in detail and walk us briefly through the projects, and then we'll have a conversation on her curatorial projects and her thoughts on photography, her thoughts on curation, and we'll see where the conversation goes. And you are more than welcome to, if you have any questions from the discussion or independently regarding photography, regarding curation and photography, and you're more than welcome to put them in the chat box, and we'll find a way to address them. So in the format of this discussion is an hour of conversation between Damarice and me, and then from there we'll have 30 minutes in the end after that, where we take on the questions and discuss them. So yeah, so bienvenue Damarice. I'll leave the floor to you for now to present us your projects and yourself. Thank you.
Okay. Merci Arko. Thank you, Arko. Hi everyone. Thank you for this invitation, for sharing my work, my project. So I'm Damarice Amao. As Arko said, I work at the Centre Pompidou at the photo department as an assistant curator. But I have a PhD. I'm an art historian, photo historian, and I work mostly on avant-garde photography, European photography. I'm a surrealist fanatic, so the surrealist movement is my main obsession, I will say. So I work on. So my first curatorial project was on yes, I would say on surrealist figure. My PhD was on Elie Lothar. Elie Lothar was a French photographer, but with Romanian origins, and he was known in the surrealist field because of some photographs he did of the slaughterhouses of La Villette. But I'm going to share maybe some images to present my project at the Centre Pompidou. I would say my project at the Centre Pompidou, but also my research field. So I will share the screen, and maybe does it work? Maybe is it okay? Can you see the slides? And I will do full screen. So this is not my first curatorial project, but this is my it's Elie Lothar. It's my PhD subject. So Elie Lothar, you can see I did a show with Clément Chéreau. Clément Chéreau is now the head curator of the MoMA in New York. He used to work at the SF MoMA and at the Centre Pompidou. So we did the show with Pia Viewing from the Jeu de Paume. So the Jeu de Paume is one of the important places for photography in Paris and in France. They don't have a collection as we do, but they organize like major exhibitions in avant-garde and contemporary. So we did for the, in 2017, it was the anniversary of the Centre Pompidou 40 years. And so we did many projects in France, and we did this project with the Jeu de Paume on Élie Lothar. So I show you some picture of the show when it was presented at the Jeu de Paume in Paris. So it was like not a traditional monography, but we tried to give to give a view of his career, but also trying to give new ideas. But maybe I will come back. I will come back to it later to detail the way I try to create shows now. So it was one of my first projects. But the first one at the Centre Pompidou was, as you said, Bois Phare. So maybe I have to go back. Sorry. Oh, okay. I will do another way. This is one of the last projects I have at the Centre Pompidou. Photography as a as a weapon in the class struggle. Maybe it's more clear in like this, but photography armed the class. So how photography was used by photographers in the 30s to for social, political engagement. So the purpose of the project was to look back the work of well-known photographers such as Henri Cartier-Bresson or Kertész or Dora Maar. And now, like the people forget that they were, really socially, politically involved. And the project was to go back to the 30s, go back to their work and looked at the context where they published their first photographs. It's really clear for Henri Cartier-Bresson, and to show that it was, they did photography in this really political context, trying to use photography as a weapon to help the class struggle. So the project, it was in 2018. It was a big 5 years project with a university. So we are 3 curators: Christian Joschke, who is a professor at the university; Florian Ebner, who is now the head of the photo department at the Centre Pompidou, and me. And so we work with young scholars to investigate archives, unknown archives, to find like some information about how photography was used in France. For Germany and for USSR, it was quite well known that there were like engaged photographers, concerned photographers. But for France, there was something unclear. So we have to do investigations to find more archive sources to document how photography was used as a class weapon. And it was a nice project, and I'm really happy with it because it was the beginning of the Gilets jaunes, the demonstration in Paris. So it has a huge audience at that moment, at the end of 2018, because of the demonstration starting in Paris, starting in France, and the use of photography, because we had like a chapter where the movement, the intellectual artist movement, but also the political movement, ask the people to use photography to document themselves, like police violence, the way they see the demonstration. So, it was really linked to today, to nowadays questions. So, and even if I'm specialized in European avant-garde, I always try to think about like today. And so what those people can, can tell about what we are living now. So photography on the class was an important project. So you can see some views of the photo gallery at the Centre Pompidou. So here it's the chapter dedicated to the to the anti-war movement. And so there were two photographs, one of André Kertész and one of an unknown photographer, but it's Henri Tracol, like dealing with how to denounce like the militarization of Europe at that moment. So this is Photographie de classe. This is the photo gallery. If you don't know the photo gallery at the Centre Pompidou, it's a new space opened in 2014 and where we do mostly shows on our collection. So it's new, it's different from the MoMA or other American museum who from the beginning they had a photo gallery for at the Pompidou photography before 2014. It was always mixed with the other, with sculpture, with paintings, with drawings. So Photographie de classe. So one of my older project, major one, is Dora Maar. I did it with my colleague Karolina Lewandowska. She's she's the senior curator in my department. So we did this show on Dora Maar. So now the show is still in London at the Tate, but it will if the borders open, it will travel to Los Angeles, to the Getty. So we showed we presented the show first in 2019, then the Tate, and then the Getty, and it was like a research, a research project between us at the Pompidou, because we have Dora Maar archives, all of our negatives, and a project with our colleague Amanda Maddox from the Getty, who she wanted to do a show for years on Dora Maar, and when we had the opportunity to launch the project, we asked her if she wanted to do it for the Getty also, and so it's a cooperation. We are really happy with it. And so the Dora Maar show, so it's also a major figure of the surrealist movement for photography. And so for the show, it was at the at the 6th floor. So one of the major galleries in the Centre Pompidou dedicated to monographs. So it was a enormous project because we had more than 80 lenders. I don't know if you can imagine what means as for the transportation and so on, and try to trace, because the problem with Dora Maar, it was that she had her archives were sold like after her death, and so but thousands of people, they bought everything. So one picture there, two picture there. So the challenge was to trace all to track our works and our photographs. Even if we at the Pompidou, we had a major part of our archives, but it was mostly negatives. We have some prints, but we have to look after because the space it's 1,000 meters square, so you have to fill it. So Dora Maar. So I show you the Elie Dotard in 2017. So really important for me because it was the occasion to valorize my research, my PhD research, not only on a book and a scholar book, but to experience during my PhD, I was really, into the details and so on, and try to track little things about his career, about the links he has with other people. And now when you have to do a show, you have to be sharp and to give up all the small details, but in the same time try to be really accurate and to give new things to the public. So it was really interesting, at this large amount of research and try to just like 800 meter squares, only picture, try to tell the same story, but to be and to explain everything visually. So it was really interesting to yes, to do the sacrifice. And I think our work as curator is doing sacrifice, to investigate and doing sacrifice. So this. And my first project at the Centre Pompidou was for the opening of the photo gallery in 2014. It was with Jacques-André Boiffard, also a surrealist. So a surrealist photographer. We had we still have in the collection a lot of his prints, and we did more research to complete our project. And so Jacques-André Boiffard was, uh, if you are fond of surrealist movement, you maybe you see who is it. He was Man Ray's assistant, and indeed some important photographs with Bataille, Georges Bataille. So it was really a show for, I don't know, yes, for people who are really specialized in photography, in surrealist movement, but in the same time, we wanted to welcome a large audience, because at the Pompidou we do for the specialists, but also for a large audience. And we worked on the scenography with this large wallpaper to give a sense of really dynamic, a spectacular experience. So it works quite well, even if the people were quite, they didn't know who was Jacques-André Boiffard, but the way we try to introduce them to him and to the universe, I think that it was easy for the people to try to know more about about him. Okay, so this is one of the major projects I did the last years. Should I add something or?
No, I think that's. I mean, we can talk a bit, and then we can go back to these projects, I guess, right?
Yes.
So, I think a very interesting thing to talk about would be. I mean, these projects are amazing, and uh, I think. Well, we could start with how you came into your formation. Your formation is in as a historian of the arts. So how you came from that to be a curator could be something that we could start off with. To
Okay. Yes. So I have a specific, I think, a specific profile in the curatorial context in France and in Paris, because I'm both an academic. I have a PhD. I'm an art historian, and I'm really proud of coming from the university. And in the same time, I work at the museum. So it was really specific because at the in France, you have to pass like competitive exam to become a curator, conservateur, so conservateur du patrimoine. So it's really a specific status, and you have to pass this exam to become officially a curator. But
Yeah.
for art, contemporary art space, and for the Museum of Modern Art, for the Centre Pompidou, for long moment, they have this tradition of welcoming curators coming from abroad, but also having like a strong expertise on their field. And so it's possible. I don't think it's possible at the Louvre. I think at the Louvre they only take like the curator who did like this competitive exam. But at the Centre Pompidou, it's mixed. So I had the chance to join the team because I did my PhD. I started my PhD in 2008, but I did it with the photo department. At that time, Quentin Bajac, who is now in charge of the Jeu de Paume, and was and he was at the MoMA. At that moment, he was the head of the Centre Pompidou photo department, and after an internship I did with them for La Subversion des Images. La Subversion des Images was a major show on surrealist photography. I did my internship, did research at that moment, and I started to build my PhD project with them because I discovered that there was the Elie Lothar archives there, some thousands of negatives that were never classified. So so I was at that moment I was working on photography in Belgium, surrealist photography in Belgium. So, but I wanted to do a PhD, and so I say, okay. I asked Quentin Bajac and Clément Chéroux if I could like build my PhD project with them. That is to say, okay, I can help you to classify to classify the archives, and in exchange you let me work on it. So they were okay for this. We find a way, like a contract between my university and the museum, so that I could stay at the photo department. I managed to get a fellowship for my 3 years during 3 years for my for to continue my doctorate. So it was, a nice arrangement. And then and I stayed there like for 4 or 5 years doing my research, doing the classification of the archives. And in the same time, I was doing small project with them, some writing. So I was, well invited to participate to the photo department activities. And then I presented my PhD in 2014, and there was like an opportunity to join the team. It was quite rare, it's really difficult, but we managed. And so in 2014, I started to work as assistant curator at the photo department. And then my first project was on Boisphard, Jacques-André Boisphard. He was a friend of Elie Lothar. So, I'm really into all of those network. I really know where to find the archives and so on. So at the beginning, in my curatorial project, uh, I was involved in the research part, like how to find the new archives, new prints, who are the people in Paris who can store this and so on. So I came at the beginning as an expertise because, I didn't have curatorial experience, of scenography. So I learned, project by project with Clément Chéroux, with Karolina Lewandowska, to learn how then to display photographs on the wall. But at the beginning, I was there because I knew how to build a discourse and to include new things on this to include new aspects, new sources, new archives. So this was my main expertise at the beginning, and also like tracking photographs or tracking archives. This is my specialty, I would say. We talked about it last time. I will define myself as a detective, and I like chasing, looking after things, trying to give a call to someone, say, do you think I can how I can get this periodical, this print and so on. So it was I started like this, and then time after time I learned on directly on the rooms how you choose an image, why this one, not this one, this document is important, but it gives nothing on the wall, so maybe it's better to keep it for the book. to keep the info. It's enough if you just have to describe it for small text. You don't need to you don't need to frame it and put it on the wall because it gives nothing on the wall. So and it was the experience directly working with the senior curators that helped me to develop my practice today.
I think it's very interesting that there are in a sense two different networks at play here. One is the network that you are looking at it via the archives and where they are. So sort of sourcing that. So the network that you're kind of the network that is directly related to your curatorial practice, and then through the curations you're looking at the networks amongst the surrealists, right? So
Yes.
there are these sort of there's a beautiful parallel between the art that you're looking at and the way that you're presenting the art. So I think I find that very beautiful. Um, coming back to the projects that you talked about, and I mean the projects that you've curated, we look at Dora Maar, Elie Lothar, and Jacques-André Boffa. In a sense, we could, it could be a strong term, but we're looking at people who are on the outlier, on the periphery of the very famous surrealism movement, right? So we are not looking at the big names. So what kind of challenges did you face as a historian? I mean, there is already, one could say that one could discern that there is a choice in the people that you're working with who are, in a sense, not the main forces in the surrealism movement. So I think it's very interesting to maybe talk about the particular choice of the people that you have looked at, and
Yes.
then the challenges of like looking at the history of these people, because for the more famous people there are archives which are existing, or like it's you have pre-existing sources, but here you have to sort of put yourself deep in, as you said, like an investigative journalist, so
Yeah.
or as a detective, as an investigative
Yeah.
person. So
Yes, it's true that I'm really, I don't like when the things are so obvious. When you take a painter or a sculpture, you take his paintings or his sculpture, you are sure that, the willing, what he wants to do, it's everything, um, it's direct, there's no, and in photography, there's something that always, um, you in a photograph you really don't know what if it's only the will of the photographer. There's the real, so you don't really know if so this is something that interests me with first choosing photography as a field, because I think that with photographers, with painters of sculpture, it's quite easy. It's always they put what they have in their mind in their artwork. But in photography, it's always ambivalent.
yeah,
You don't really know what the photographers wanted to to frame. But it works mostly for the documentary photography, really, because
sure, yeah.
if you stage photography, I think it's all well, defined by the maker. So that's why I love photography, because it's ambivalent. And also what you said, I'm not interested in big names like Henri Cartier-Bresson. But see, I can be interested, but for different aspects. But I'm not interested in people who manage to draw and to draw like the part, which, yes, who managed to have a perfect career, I will say, the
Yeah,
start, the peak, and then, it's always the same
trajectory.
evolution of
Yeah,
career. And I'm more interested in like uh, people, you just see their names once or twice.
yeah,
You only know two or three photographs from them, and there's a lot of shadows. You don't really know where to find the archives. You don't really know when they were born or when they died. And I really love that kind of um yes, characters Why? Because I think that it's challenging for the way we write history, history of art, history of photography, is try to like history of photography is not only for me and for other researchers, scholars. Now, history of photography is not only um, it's not only putting big names,
Yeah,
finding the masters like Man Ray, Henri Cartier-Bresson. But at the beginning, the history of photography needed. Yes, I think that we needed to write it this way because we wanted to challenge the history of art. So we need our masters, our art
sure.
movement. So we need this way of writing photography. And but I think that I come from another generation. I'm free of this, and now the challenge is to include like people who didn't really have success or didn't achieve like the perfect career, but this can tell a lot about what means to be like a woman photographer as Dora Maar, why she quit photography at the end of the 30s. Someone like Elie Lothar, who came from Romania. I think it's interesting to know, okay, he had a short career as a photographer. He wanted to be a filmmaker. Uh, what does it mean at that moment to be um, a photographer, a migrant, trying to build a career in the cinema and the photography, and why he failed? So I'm more interested in that kind of questions, and I think that the failure, the people who couldn't achieve perfectly what they wanted to do, I think all these things can, yes, can give us more something different. We can learn about those yes, about those failures, those we say inachèvement in French.
Yeah,
So okay, so that's why I'm interested in seeing history or doing history like this. And it's also, I think, something more personal. So, I love history. I love when there are some blank shadows, and then you have to in the same time finding sources, archives, but in the same time interpret or doing imagination to try to how you say, to assemble the puzzle, to assemble
yeah, yeah, yeah.
okay. So, and that's why yes, I define myself as a detective, because and I'm okay with the fact that we don't really know everything and that we are not sure.
Yeah.
It's that I'm really okay, and I like the fact that okay, it's speculation. We try to be the more accurate possible. The more accurate we can be, finding archives, sources. I never invent anything,
Sure,
but
yeah,
I show when I tell when it's maybe speculation,
yeah.
but I'm okay with this. I'm okay with the fact that hey, we don't know, and maybe we will never know, and that's okay.
Yeah.
So that's that's
There is a Picasso book which is peering from behind you, so I'm going to jump directly into this on the other side. Yeah,
I didn't like
yeah.
this.
So I mean, we are talking about the lesser known people in the surrealism movement. From that coming to one person, for example, like if we take the example of Dora Maar, like she's been known and it's been discussed in history and gossip, like it's been part of the tomes around the aura surrounding Dora Maar, like her relationship with Picasso. I think while through your project, I think I mean when you work with Dora Maar, of course, I'm sure that had to be a stumbling block that kind of you wanted to resolve, and to look at other lesser known aspects of her work, I would imagine. And if you could tell us a bit about how that sort of practice of looking at the lesser known aspects of
Yeah.
of a movement and then a personage comes out in the Dora Maar project.
Yes, I think that the from the beginning, the Centre Pompidou, the National Museum of Art, really wanted to be a major actor in history of art. You know, there are the scholars, the historian of art, but the museum is a place where we just not, legitimate some discourses, but we also give new, yes, give new discourses, new aspects, and so this is something, the Centre Pompidou opened in the late 70s, and from today, I think that we are still, and in our department, with someone, with Clément Chéroux, with Quentin Bajac, we are still in this. We still have this will to, to give new aspects of history of photography, to challenge the history of photography. So for the Remarque, it was for us obvious to just not, take, but as you say, the Remarque, it's most, if you look at the bibliography, it's except the work that Victoria Combalia did in Spain, it's mostly, biographic book on her, focusing on a relation on Picasso, telling that she was crazy, telling that Picasso ruined her life, and I don't know. But it's all gossips, and it doesn't. And the problem is that for you women artists, uh, it's most of the time gossips. People are more interested in which who were our lovers. Did she want babies or not? Did she Who was her husband? And but for men artists, you don't ask all of, you can be interested in, but it's not the main main literature. And on the Rama, the main literature is about who she slept with, you know. And for the museum, it was important to our focus is what can be put on the wall, what is visual. So someone, I was talking with a student who did like a dissertation about, the rediscovery of Dorama. And she asked us why we didn't do a chapter on Georges Bataille. So Georges Bataille, the French philosopher, really subversive writer. And it is said that Dorama had a relationship with him, but you only accept 3 letters that are not really clear. You can't say much, and there are nothing about our photographs or painting or a text that deals with that deals with this relationship. And it's different with Picasso. Picasso, at the beginning, we say, okay, we don't want to do a Picasso Dorama show. We want to to give the right but the just place of Picasso in our life. And so it was a small chapter. It was not like at the beginning, you could
passing in a sense.
Yes, you could expect that we will start with the woman, obviously the name, I don't know, the weeping woman, and all. So at the beginning, when we collect all the archives, we collect all the chronology and so on. And so at the beginning, when she met Picasso, she was like a famous photographer, and she had a great success as a commercial photographer. And those years are always, okay, and so we wanted in the show to present those years. And as a commercial photographer, as a street photographer, she was only like, you could imagine, she was only 25 years old, and she had like worked with like many like major newspapers at the moment, Vogue, for Condé Nast,
Yeah.
and she was like really well known. And when Picasso met her in 1935, 1946, he met one of the best photographer in Paris. And so, and but what
And that
you,
narrative is completely absent in existing
yes, and she
in
was the
existing.
first one to portrait, to do a portrait of him in her studio, and even if after she became the muse, and so in the show we really wanted to give like the, to be more balanced, to give credit to the archives and the facts, and but in the same time it's true that it is a feminist way to show dorama, a more feminist. And we were with my colleague Carolina, who is really involved in the museum for acquisition on women, and
Yeah.
to give more audience to the woman photographer in the museum. It was something we discussed at the beginning, that we wanted to give her voice, and not, you know, and it means that, yes, to get rid of all of the gossips. And there's a lot of
And there's
people,
a political
especially,
side to her as well, right? When she went to, she
yeah,
wanted to highlight her political activism and
yes, when she met the surrealists in 1943, 1944, it was in this all the political movement, one of the political movement we talk about, we deal with photography on the class, and she signed a lot of flying political flyers, and she went to reunion. She was really like yes, involved in the political, and she even, she pushed Picasso also, uh, even if Picasso was always political involved, but more in his painting. But she was the one to talk to him about the reunion organized. She helped him to to not to do Guernica, but to find the place where Picasso could paint Guernica. And the
yeah.
place she found was a place where she had the reunion, the political reunion. So she was in her 30s. It's funny because Victoria Combalia, one of uh, one of the specialists on Dorama, she had like a uh, she had an interview in the 90s with Dora, and in Art Press, like the French art country newspaper. And
Yeah.
Dora told Victoria Combalier, she said, I was really leftist at that moment, not at today. It's true that at when she became older, she was more like religious, but she was really clear about her past as a political, to be as yes, as being politically engaged in the 30s,
Yeah.
and as the surrealist.
Going to the going from there to the to the topic of political activism, you mentioned that you wanted to create, even though you're looking at a historical archive and of course bringing it out in your way, but you wanted to bring a resonance to the contemporary times, right? So when you did photography on the class, the photography as a class, as a weapon of, as a class weapon. Um, you were all, it also coincided with the Gilets jaunes movement,
Yes,
and so that kind of immediately brought, I mean, it brought it into a sort of, even though spectral, like a very strong political resonance to current times.
yeah,
And I also feel like taking from that, and the Gilets jaunes movement is still, one would say, ongoing. And now we also have the Black Lives Matter movement. So it's, and police repercussions and repressions, pretty much across the world, in a huge
yes,
amount of, in a huge number of countries. So it kind of makes it very political already. Um, so I was thinking about like how how these sort of, I think you mentioned that from there it led you to create like that exhibition was a sort of departure point for many other things later on in your curatorial trajectory as well.
Yes. So sorry, what was I? There was a blank. Could you repeat the last part?
Yeah, sorry, I was saying like that exhibition, while also cementing the past in a very concrete present, it also served as a point of departure for your other future
Yes.
curations, I would imagine. So if we could talk, if you could tell
Oh,
us a
but
bit about.
yes. So you know that every year in France there's the photo festival in Arles,
Yeah.
and it's now cancelled and had a show on Charlotte Perriand. Charlotte Perriand, I don't have picture there, but I'm sorry. But Charlotte Perriand she's known as she's a designer, architect. She had the major show this year at the Louis Vuitton Foundation in Paris. And she
Yeah.
was close to Dora Maar because they went
Yeah.
to the same school for women for graphic design. And she was really involved, politically involved in the 30s. And in Photographie Arme de Classe, there was a chapter dedicated to her engagement for she was thinking about giving better environment for people to live, like to do better housings and so on. And she did many projects on this, denouncing, criticizing like the slums in Paris. And she had a major collection of photography who helped her to do photomontages, but large, like monumental photomontages, and to do a documentation about like social life. And for the show in, so it's a chapter from this photography arm de class that I'm
Yeah.
going to develop. I was supposed to develop this summer for the photo festival in Arles. There was like a part of the selection of the project was about political, yes, political question problematics, and so with Charlotte Perriand and our political photomontages,
Yeah.
we were supposed to display a project from the 30s. So three major projects, photomontages of the 30s, that again deals exactly with nowadays, because there's one large photomontages about the slums in Paris,
Yeah.
denouncing the slums in Paris, and we still have slums in Paris,
Perfect.
and two other big photomontages she did about um, the rural life, agriculture, and it deals about, it's part part showing the photomontage, part of the photomontage show like the situation of the rural life in France at that moment. So really poor people, like, they have to sell themselves, to earn a living. No technology, they don't have any. Um, they work as the past centuries, and so she's showing the situation, and in the same time she's like showing she's she explaining what could be like a better life for farmers. And
Yeah.
so looking after the, I don't say, how you say in English, retraite, la
Uh,
retraite, or I
the
don't know.
retirement.
Yes, retirement, like social, social cotization and so on. So, so it's really interesting because, we had in France the major demonstration last year about the retirement and the social security and so on. And all of those problems were in the photomontages. So it, okay. So it's again a project that helped me to do the links
Yeah.
between what's the problem of the past, but still linked with today, and the role of photography. The one of the major idea at that in the 30s between the different leftist movement is to use, to be not only that everyone could be a producer of images, everyone could be could give information, or so they were inviting uh, the people to use photography and to give their yes, to give their way of seeing life, the conditions of the conditions of work in their factory, and to, or as I said, to use photography to use it to document the police violence and so on. So they were doing small workshops with labor to learn them how to use photography. So Elie Lothar were involved in the work, was organizing workshops for the workers to
Yeah.
help them to use photography. And it's, and today with like the smartphones, the internet, it's what they expected, that people,
Yeah.
everyone could take his phone, his camera to document what you live, and to give the information. You don't have to just accept information from the mainstream media and so on. You can be part of the you can be a producer also. So that's something really interesting, and that I think it's really uh, during the show Photography am the class, there were many um, school class school, they came to the show because it was interesting for the teacher to speak about today, the role of photography and the media. So that's why it's something really important to try to and even with the Ramar, with the question of the woman in history and so on, try to be the more accurate in the, yes, the problems where we try to raise, so that the people today, they can feel it's important to speak about those figures, those people.
Yeah, I think it's great that we are living, in a sense, we continue to live in a sort of second great democratic moment of a democratization of the production of imagery, and through the
Yes,
smartphone and the explosion of the internet, and notably in like spaces like India or Bangladesh, in the developing countries where
yes,
the internet and the smartphone has made major inroads, and
yes,
almost everyone has access to some form of the internet. So there is a major democratization of image making that is currently, for better or for worse, like kind of
yes.
running
It's
wild in the,
interesting. Yes.
yeah. So we have around 8 minutes to round this up, but I wanted to, like, we could speak about your project in Ghana to go from this, and if you wanted to talk about that a bit, and show us something from that.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So so I had this show about Charlotte Perriand and her political photomontation, but it will be postponed for next year. But next year also for the photo festival in Arles, as I have a project, a more personal one about Ghana, because I come from, I was born in France, in the south of France, in Montpellier, was raised in France, I went to school in France, but my parents are from Ghana. And but I started history of art. I was interested in surrealist and European photography, and I never, I didn't feel obliged to deal with post-colonial movement or topic. I was really maybe yes, I was thinking, like, for after we discussed last time, if
Yeah.
it, how was my position with this, the fact that I didn't want it to be like the Black curator for Black art, for primitive art. And so, and maybe I think that as I didn't want to be categorized in something, I shifted. I say, okay, I'm more interested in surrealist, and this is it. And I don't want to feel obliged to speak about, primitive art or something. And my project is the reflect of I think of my freedom about what I should deal with. But with time, maybe with getting old, I'm not getting back, but I'm starting to be more interesting in what I could represent, maybe because people ask me some question also. So why? Oh, it's interesting. You are a Black curator and you don't deal with Black topics, and I went for the first time in Ghana last November. So it was my very first time there.
Yeah.
And because I started a project it's about me, but it's also about photography because it's still about like the political network. It started with, I will show you some slides. It
Damarice,
started,
I'll just take a moment from you and just open
yes,
it, like just tell the participants, the audience, that if you have your questions, we'll be taking them very soon. So in 5, 6 minutes, you can, if you have questions, you're more than welcome to put them in the dialogue box, and we'll take it from there. Yeah. Thank you
okay.
so much. Yeah. So
Okay.
back to you. Yeah.
So to go quickly about my next project on Ghana. So
Yeah.
um, so it's about, first it was about like, it's me because I come from Ghana. My parents are from Ghana, and also photography. I was interested in Paul Strand. So Paul Strand is known as one of the major documentary photographer, and he did a project on Ghana. He went to Ghana in 1963, 64, and the book was published 10 years later. But it was called by Kwame Nkrumah, the first president of Ghana, and Ghana, it's the first country in Africa who gained its independence, and he called Paul Strand to come to Ghana and do a portrait of the country. And I knew this book. I knew another book also. I knew the book. I knew some of the photographs you can see there. So it's really a nice book, but it was published after Paul Strand's death. And I want to know more why it's why it wasn't published just right after he went to Ghana. So I have a fellowship to go to Tucson in Arizona to go in Paul Strand archives. So I knew the book and the photographs of Paul Strand. So here you can see Kwame Nkrumah. And I knew also this book. I have it at home, like for when I was 6 years old. I was like watching the picture, but I didn't know that Marc Ribou, one of the photographers from Magnum, one big photographer of Magnum, was the main photographer of the book, and he did it with Jeanne Rouch. Jeanne Rouch is the wife of Jean Rouch, who is known for his more than ethnographic film. And he went and spent a lot of time in Ghana. So I have those books that was in my, I had at home when I was young, and Paul Strand was linked to, he's known to be, he was not, I don't know if he was in the Communist Party, but he was left, he was, engaged with the left parties in the US, and he left the US for France because of the McCarthyism, because he was known for being politically engaged with the left movement. And so it's this network that network of photographers linked to the left movement, to the decolonialist, yes, to independence movement that interested me. And I could just take like a ticket to Ghana and try to meet family and try to know more and just take books to know more about Ghana. But you know, my passion, I'm fond of photography. I only work, I only live with my project on photography. So I wanted to do in the same time this project to yes to go back to my roots, we'll say, but in the same time try to to investigate something about history of photography. So I'm really, and thanks to other colleagues who are studying on photo books, I'm working on the photo books published at that time about Ghana. So you can see those ones like the Gold Coast just before the independence. So it's a starting project. I'm going to develop it with the archives of Paul Strand, trying to know why you call an American photographer to come to Ghana to do this project, and on the photo books developed at that moment, and also like uh, the the stamps, and try to also to to bring in this project like other Ghanaian photographers, such as James Barnard, who spent his life between Ghana and to Accra and London. So he has a really interesting um, parcours, I would say. And so it's the starting
Professional
project.
life.
And what's it's interesting, it's my first personal project, and something also about my family, because we discussed about it. I had a great uncle who was close to all this uh, cultural revolution in Ghana at that moment. He created the first museum of contemporary, first center of contemporary art. But I didn't know him well. He died 10 years ago. And I'm just walking into his path in the same way, because he was fond of photography. He was collecting photography. He was part of all of these people engaged after independence to develop and to build Ghana as a nation, but as a great nation for Africa, but not only also as a cultural, intellectual nation. So this is all the aspect of this new project I'm starting with photography, with me in the middle, with the cultural um, network in Accra. So it's what I can say for the moment.
Well, it's super nice. Thank you so much for sharing. The future projects as well. And I mean, I wish you all the best with the successful completion.
Yeah.
Really look forward to it.
Yes,
Uh, I
thank
think
you.
with that we kind of round with that we come to the end of like our proposed 1 hour of talk.
Yeah.
We are taking questions from the audience at this point. So if you have questions, we are very glad to take them up for discussion. So please type away. And we already have a couple of questions, so I'll pass them off to you to see what your
Okay.
thoughts are. So one is the first one says, what kind of photography projects are usually accepted for curating? Um, yeah, so I mean, in India, for like the idea of curation and photography curation is a bit. I mean, we don't have really schools or necessary trajectory or clear trajectory to come into photography curation. That's why. So for us, it's an open-ended exploratory path that you kind of come into, as opposed to like rise from. So it was. I think it was really illuminating to hear your parcours, as you said, and it was very illuminating, I think, for a lot of people here to see how one possibility of like coming into photography is curation. So thank you so much. So,
Can't see.
what do you think about
It's
this one?
paused. I can't hear you.
Oh, hello.
Yes, I didn't. Yes. Oh.
Yeah, I
I
was
really.
just
Okay. Maybe it's my connection. So can you just repeat maybe the end of the question?
yeah. I mean, I was just saying I was talking about like in terms of photography, like and photography curation in developing world context, especially in India. Like for us, it's always. I mean, it's very difficult to know what curation is or the role of photography in contemporary art is also a very gray zone that we are constantly trying to understand what it means.
Mm.
So I think, I mean, one question here that came up was like, what kind of photography projects are interesting to you as curation? So that, I mean, you probably like you've answered that mostly, right? Like through the surrealism and your interest in that as a research topic, and then taking off from that to the more personal project that you very generously shared with us. Um, okay, so we'll take one. There's one that's here which says, "Could you comment on the role of captions, especially in the realm of surrealist photography?" So I guess
The
that relates to exhibition making, and
the text and the captions, you mean?
yeah,
Um,
I think
um,
I think a good thing here would be to take up the idea of the books that you mentioned that the books play a very central role in your exhibition and curatorial process as well. So maybe you could show us the books and how sort of the text comes into your project.
yes. I don't have the PDF of the books
No,
now,
I
but
mean you have the books in your hand, right? Like this.
yes, I
Yeah,
have the
yeah,
book.
yeah.
Books. This
That's,
is
I mean, it's
one.
beautiful. Yeah.
Also, yes, the captions and uh, I was. I don't know. We were talking about with it with someone. I don't remember. So for me, when I build a curation, a show, we build a show. I always try to find in my head, to know which chapters and so on. I try to imagine how I will explain, how we'll do the tour for the public.
Yeah.
So for me, it's really important that, for each chapter, I'm not repeating myself. It's really clear the ideas. And the text, what we say in French, the text, the salle, the room text are really important for me because it helps you to, and the title, it helps me to organize quite, sharply the idea. And also I know that someone in art space, more contemporary, they with the captions on the wall alongside the picture, they say maybe we could just put it on a text, and people, if they want to see the caption, they can go back. At the museum, it's something different. You must put something on the wall
Sure. Yeah.
or somewhere, because for the public, we are working for, uh, you know, uh, you should imagine like you have like someone who go once in a year to the museum, to someone who, is a journalist, a specialist. So, but we have to have the level of the text, the level of information has to be the same for all of those people.
Yeah.
So the text and the captions for us at the museum, it's really important. So I will say that it's a condition. But for me, in my work also, as working with the avant-garde photography, it's like working on the caption and working on the dates are something really important. So, and it giving the captions on the wall, it gives you the idea of research we did also.
Yeah.
Sometimes, sometimes we give the attribution. We change the attribution of the photographs. So for years, we found that the photographs were made by someone, and it changed. So the caption, it's important not only for the public, but also because it's small proof of the yes, a small way to show how we evolved on the datation, the attribution, or the titles. And the Surrealist project is really interesting. You see like a title as a poetic is published like this in a in a book or in a poetic book, and 10 years later the titles has changed. And I think
Yeah.
all of these things could be interesting. I don't know if it was the question, if I answered the question asked, but also,
We'll
and
see if there's a follow-up to that. But there are a lot of more questions. So should we should we move
yes,
on to? There are some on the relevance of surrealism to the region in South Asia. So I think those could be interesting. There's one from Anshika, and Anshika asks, "How does your interest in surrealist work follow up on more contemporary voices within photography today? And are there any particular trends that can be identified? I'm curious to know about this since the medium has found very unique regional voices today."
so one thing,
Yeah.
it's a really relevant question because we did with Lina Lewandowska a show and a book on the name. The title is Le Spectre du Surréalisme, and it's like it was a book and a project and a show presented in Arles in 2017, dealing with like the like the dialogue with contemporary photography, surrealism and contemporary photography. And it's true that in our collection at the Centre Pompidou, we are many artists that, contemporary artists that those their work, their way of doing and experiencing photography are really close to some topic in surrealist, of the historical surrealism.
Yeah.
So if I just give you the names of the, we presented the project. Hey, we presented the project of Agnès Geoffrey. She's a French photographer, but also Sophie Calle. And also we presented the project of, I, I missed the name now. Really interesting. Indian photographer, woman. Help me. Dayanita Singh. So our project in Paris. So we did like a parallel with Brassai and Dayanita
Okay.
Singh, like so so in the book. And so it was really, maybe it was one of our more curatorial,
Sure.
curatorial project, because it was not, it was kind of this decision to choose those contemporary photographers or not. This one was quite personal, you see, because we had to think about like thematics, themes, topics that could, but maybe if you give you say to someone to do the same exercise, they would pick over contemporary photographers. So I don't know if in a scholarly or scientific, it's really the photographers we choose are really like linked to the surrealist. But
Right.
we did the exercise, and it's decision, it's personal, but I think it works very well in the book. So respect. So maybe I can show you one of the pages. I don't know if we can see. It's here. It's the page with Dayanita Singh, and
Okay. Yeah.
and it was like dialoguing with Wafa, with Brassai, and for us it was, I don't know if you can see, but
Yeah.
it works like, because of the project she had, it's the project is House of Love in 2011. and the way she was wandering in the city, and the way Brassac was wandering in the city, and it works very well. So yes.
And the book is in English, or it's a bilingue, or this
No, it's
language?
only in French.
Okay.
It's only in French, and there's only small text, but
Yeah.
yes, small text, more photo. It's more than
Okay.
an album and small text, but it was an interesting exercise. Try
Yeah.
to and the show at the show in Arles was larger than the book, and it was really
Of course. Yeah.
interesting. You could see some Erwin Wurm dialoguing with Man Ray and some other
We
another question. I
we
don't.
have a lot of questions for you, and we have 15 minutes, so there are
Okay.
4 or 5, so we'll provision accordingly. I think it also, like your answer sort of question, your response questions Sharbendu's question as well, which was there. So we'll go to the next one. This is an anonymous question, which is how is Centre Pompidou and you personally ensuring to represent women photographers and artists in the current scene? Are there any specific initiatives?
Specific initiatives. Yeah, I would say yes. It's as many institutions and art space, the Centre Pompidou is really concerned about these questions, and try to to give a larger audience to women artists. And
Yeah,
next year there will be a major show about women in abstraction in the one of the larger gallery in the Centre Pompidou. But we are totally aware that there's a lot of work to do because we starting, but it's also because as an institution we are also balanced with the idea of um, we need like a lot of people coming to the museum. And if you want a lot of people coming to the museum, you have to put big names, and the big
yeah,
names are always the same. So when you want to show like a less known artist, woman artist, it's it could be difficult. But now, but the museum is used to try to find the balance between like big names, blockbusters shows, and also like more like yes, well-known artists, well-known movement. But those projects are needed because of well-known movement, because we need to know more about like some movement,
yeah,
artistic movement. And for the women, because it's true that it's not balanced. There's not enough women representation in history of art because there are not enough effort made to buy the work, to give them a major solo show, to yes. So it's a work in progress. It's not totally perfect, but we are working on. And my colleague Karolina Lewandowska, uh, she's with other colleagues, she's totally working on this to increase the acquisition of women photographers. The same for the other colleagues for women artists. So this is the I don't know how to say this is a long time project to
yeah.
be more balanced.
I mean, you're already doing pretty stellar work on that field. I mean, it's a beginning, right? So with
Yes.
the way you're looking at the non-represented space
Yeah.
through your curations. Thinking of the long term, here's a question. This is from Lou.
Hmm?
And Lou's question is, as you said, Damahis, nowadays everyone can be a photo producer, himself or herself, but imagine the quantity of productions in 2050 or 2000 or 2100, so at the end of the century. How
Hmm?
do you see the work of the curators or investigators in the future? How will they select what is important or not in the archives?
Uh, our work. I think I would say that being a curator is to select. The definition, I think, as a curator. So it's the it's the essence of our work. So I think that we have to select more in the future. It's not a program, it's our work. It's to select and to to emphasize some work and to take decisions. So I don't see it like as yes, there's a lot more and more image producer artists, but and in photography, we are used to deal with massive archives, massive works. You know, when at the museum, when we acquire some photographs, it's not just, sometimes it's one, but mostly it's 10 or 20, or it's in the total installation with 50 prints. So we are used to deal with the the mass, like the volume of prints. So it's true with internet, you have more and more, but I think that, and I can see it because we take some intern at the photo department, and you can see an intern coming from like traditional art and an intern who had the experience to deal with photography. He's more at ease with, like, when I say, okay, you have to check like all of these 100 photographs on the and organize it on Excel file. You know, the students who are used to photography, they are okay with this. If you take like over students art, which more like, you know, 20 artworks they have to deal with. There's not this relations to the volume of work of images. It's something really specific to the photography curators, and I think it's uh, and yes, and I think it's and with the experience, you're more sharp, you go quickly, and so on. So I don't see, yes, selecting is cutting, give, give away, it's our work.
There's one on the continuing on that same sort of topic. There's one question from Naveed, and it says, in today's world, which has a profusion of images, what themes do you find interesting in contemporary photography?
I didn't understand the middle of your question. Can you
What
repeat?
in today's world, which already has a profusion of images, what particular themes do you find interesting in contemporary photography?
In today's photography, oh la la, I don't know. Don't know. It's really, it depends on the everything. It's interesting. It's the what will interest me, you know, like the more personal works, the more political works, the work dealing with environment. They could be all interesting, but what is interesting for a curator, it's the image is good and true. And I can I have the experience when I go to school for the jury checking like students project. I'm not, there are some projects I'm not, the topic is not it's not something I will, I'm not related to this project. But even if it's really far from me, it's not the question. If the students or the people find the best way, the image is really good, and does it say something? So it's the only question for me. Every topic, you can, if you want to do photographs about your toes or your, I don't know, your head cut, it's okay. There's no, I don't do some hierarchy between the teams, the
Yeah.
film, but it's the we'll say the truth of of the image, you know, that that is the most important, that the good
Yeah.
shape, the good scale, the good tone, the perfect angle, and there's something you can feel. So I think this is the most important for me.
There is one question on being an outsider. I think that's an interesting. So I'll read the question for you. It says, as you mentioned that the personal project you are working on revolves around the geographical location you belong to, but have never really visited before last year.
Hmm.
So does working on this now, you have a difficulty of looking at the realm as an outsider, and how do you deal with it?
If I have,
I mean, just to add to that, I think the idea is like that in France, looking at surrealism is also somewhat, you would be an outsider, I would say, in some sense. And
yeah,
also while looking at Ghana from being in France and like you're going there for the first time
yeah,
in all this time, that also makes, while it is a very personal project, it's also like you're coming in somewhat from the outside, but also constantly navigating that navigating what is inside, what is outside, and the
yeah,
boundaries between what is objective and subjective. So I think we could
yeah.
look at that question in sort of this sort of
Yes,
parameter.
it's interesting. Yes, I didn't think about it like this, but it's true that I'm always maybe put myself as an outsider, but I think that also to have like a different vision, a proper vision of things. Also, you have to be in, but in the same time, on the verge and looking um, from to have a different perspective. And it's interesting not to be totally part of something linked, but not so. And yes, and with my project on surrealism, with the people I'm dealing with, I love these people who are on the verge. They are,
Yeah.
and it's and if we have to do like to do a psychoanalysis, I think that there's something that reflects my own position.
Yeah. Okay, so I think we are kind of nearing, like we have 4 more minutes. So there is
Okay.
a comment from Adil. It's more comment and question, I would say. Adil says, we heard about the democratization of the production of images. However, can you speak on the continuing autocratization of the dissemination of the same via a combination of algorithms and gatekeeping in different spaces?
Intéressant. I don't know. I'm not a specialist of the project. There are other curators and writers who are more linked to this question and could do more. So what's my my perspective is to draw some links with the past. But it's true that the question of dissemination was really was a crucial question at that moment. And there were no internet, no algorithm at that time, but it passed. It was through the magazines, and the first thing, the political movement at that moment, they tried to build a magazine, to use magazines to spread the message, to spread photography. And so in the Photographie de class, one of the first and major magazines, photo magazine, was Regard, and it was founded thanks to the USSR, and it was the first mainstream magazine on political, yes, left political topics. And so now the magazines, I don't think that they are important for the dissemination of ideas. Now it's internet. So I don't have any, I read things. I'm looking some works, but I'm not, I don't have a clear position about this. So I don't I don't know if I will give like a clear and pertinent answer to the
Yeah.
question. But it's something that we wanted with my project. I'm raising archive sources, and I organize them in books, in shows, try to raise the major aspects. And for me, after people, they can do anything they want to do, and if they want to use it to think more about the project.
Yeah. Okay, I think we are very much at the end. I just want to just to round it off by asking you one thing: is what advice would you have for young curators who are starting out in photography curation or curation in general, and for those who are thinking of coming in and starting off embarking on a career in photography curation? What advice would you have for them?
Oh, it's difficult, but it's my personal point of view. But I would say, like, working a lot, like taking maybe, less social life and more readings, more meetings with artists, looking a lot of photographs, like um, going to the collection and looking at prints, like a lot of prints every day, because it helps you to build your eyes and to because it's an experience, it's a visual experience also doing the show. So why
Yeah.
do you want to take these prints and not this one? Go to, you have to go to the framers, go to the printers to see, okay, what means to have that kind of framings and or did that kind of print and so on. So I think um, experience photography as an object of the occasion, go to the collection, go to the printer, go to the framer, speak with I think it's something really interesting because it helps you also to have a sense of yes, to be absorbed by the medium and to help you to build more maybe easily what you want, what kind of visual experience you want to design for the public. So I think it would be, and to read a lot because
Yeah.
shows is for, it's another way to give an idea, to give a discourse about something. So you have to, you don't need to write everything on the wall to detail everything, but you have to tell something with the images. So I think it's important to know what you want to say and not just curate for curating, just displaying prints on the wall because you want to display things.
Yeah.
That's only.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. I think with that we come to the end of our 1.5 hour session.
Okay.
So yeah,
Thank
so
you.
thank you so much for sharing your insights, sharing your projects, sharing your future projects, and giving us insights into your thoughts, process, decision making, editing, curation, all of
Yeah,
that.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
for inviting me. Thank you for being so kind because my English is not so perfect, but I
It's
hope you
perfect.
managed to understand everything.
We did. Yeah.
But if you have questions, if people want to develop, on they can send me questions if they want, can develop.
I'll just quickly come in to say a big thank you from Chennai Photo Biennale Foundation to you, Damarice, and to you, Arko, as well, for taking out the time. Your English is very well understood. Don't worry about that. And it was an excellent session. And I'm glad that we kickstarted our series, this month with you. It's also an important conversation to have at this point. And we hope that going forward every week, we have curated many more conversations with different artists and some other curators as well. So thank you everyone for joining us. Sorry, my laptop conked off, which is why I'm on my phone. And I hope to see you. Our next event is on June 16th with Rahab Alana from Al-Qazi foundation of the Jimaix Arles, and with the co-founders of and the co-curators of the Arles exhibit in 2019. So do join us on June 16th. All of our other programming, which is happening every week, actually, it's quite a packed month. Do check it out on Chennai Photo Biennale on Instagram or on our website. Thank you to the French Institute in India really for inspiring us to kind of do this as well. And we hope to remain connected. Do stay in touch. Damarice, I hope to see you in person someday
Yes.
when we are all able to meet each other in person. So thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Arko. Merci.
Thank you. I'll write you a mail in a bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Merci.
Bye.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Take care.
Take care too.